Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb. Hey everyone, Booze and Boards, Mickey and Jeb. Mickey, are you excited for today?
Yes.
Why are you excited?
Because we're questing.
Is that Lord of the Rings questing?
No. We already quested Lord of the Rings on Booze and Boards.
Yeah, that's true. You should check out that video.
We are Warhammer Quest.
Warhammer Quest. It's questing.
It is questing.
Actually, Mickey had bought this first, and he showed it to me, and I really enjoyed it. It kind of has it's not exactly like Lord of the Rings, but you get a really good sense of questing. You have your characters, and they have their actions they can perform, and monsters you battle, and it's all the good things questing involves.
Yep. So it's Fantasy Flight Games.
Yep.
It is 1 to 4 players. Like Jeb said, it's a questing game it's basically all cards, dice, and some other things we'll show you during component setup. It takes place obviously in the Warhammer universe. It's also by game design by Adam Sadler and Brady Sadler. So we will be back in just a second, unless Jeb has anything else to say about the game, and show you the components. That won't take very long, and then we'll get into explanation of gameplay and setup and all that good stuff.
Questing!
Questing! Where's your sword?
Oh, I lost it.
Figures.
Alright, so I guess we'll start with a quick intro. The game is pretty much a cooperative game where the heroes need to complete quests together. There are actual quests, and then there's a delve type of quest. I haven't actually played the delve one, so
It's basically just a single one. All the quests are tied in together. It's chained together. So a complete one is it 4 or 5, something like that. And then there's a side one that you're supposed to be able to play just a quick and dirty. I just want to sit down and play a game. So that's the difference between the two. There's a full one, and then that continues on, and then there's a delve quest, which is just a singular one shot thing.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with the components of the game. The first thing is the quest sheet, which you could probably tell is the big sheet there that has all the information about the quest.
It's there. This game is set up really nice. Anything that you're going to need to know during the quest is right here, and then on the back is full setup for what you need to do when you start out and all that. We'll get into more of that later, but it's really nice the way they did these cards. So you got setup on the back, and this is the part you'll be playing with throughout the game.
Alright, the next thing are the hero cards. Mickey has separated the 4 different hero piles up there.
And I'm just going to show you one. Hopefully you can see this a little bit. If not, Jeb will blow up a couple cards so you can see what I'm talking about. So there's 4 different heroes, excuse me, in the base set. And with your hero, you have... I'm missing one. Anyways, so you have 3 cards for the heroes. And basically the only difference in the cards is how many players you're playing with, which again is done very nicely with 2 players, with 3 players, or with 4 players. You pick the card, how many players are playing, and you take that card.
And I guess the difference is that your health changes depending on the number of players, right? That's one of the big things.
That's correct. Okay, that's correct. The rest of the stuff stays the same. And then there are some legendary weapons that come with your hero that you have a chance to acquire throughout your quest. And then you have 2 sets of action cards. And this is important. You have everybody has 4 actions, and the ones that you're going to start with say basic, and then you have 4 other cards that say advanced, and you will have an opportunity to train and upgrade your cards to get be more proficient at whatever you're doing. And that's quick over. We'll get into more details on the heroes in just a minute, but that's what the cards look like.
All right, so the next set of cards that we're going to talk about are the gear cards.
Okay, the gear cards are this skull and sword and gun card deck. They look like this on the back. There's all kinds of different things in it.
The next type of cards are the location cards.
The location cards are here. They all have a name. They all have a symbol up in the top left. It usually indicates the level, which we'll get into more later. All the other things on the card we will talk about in a little bit, but those are location cards. That's the back.
Then there are the enemy cards.
Big deck of enemy cards. That's the back of the enemy cards. That's what the enemies look like on the front. Again, they have levels up in the corner, health, and actions and things like that we will explain more when we go over full setup. But that's what they look like.
Alright, there are condition cards, which are the tiny cards up there.
Tiny cards. There's only 3 conditions as of now. Bleeding, sickened, and empowered. You'll notice that you have the 2 bad ones, bleeding and sickened, are a red background, and empowered is actually good, and that has a green background. One other thing about the gear deck real quick is, which we'll go over again, but there are 4 cards that say Legendary Fortune, which don't start in the deck, but I'll tell you that later also.
Okay. Next are the dungeon cards.
Dungeon cards have the lantern, and they have all kinds of nifty things that happen when you go into the dungeon.
Alright, so that's about it for the cards. Next are the dice that you use in the game.
Dice. Okay, so we have the black dice, which are representative of the bad guys, and the white dice that are basically representative of the good guys. There are like a burst symbol, the axes, and I think and shields on those. The black ones have slash marks, the really bad guy, and blank spots on them.
And then at the bottom of the screen is the leader token, which is just to show who the leader of the group is. And I believe that passes.
It does.
So, and then finally there's a bunch of tokens that are up there. There's wound, progress, success, and there's 1 peril token.
Yeah, well, okay. So, wound tokens, nicely done. You got 1s and 3s. They'll be placed on your card when you take wounds. The Jeb's hunting out a progress token. Again, 1s and 3s. Those will come into play when you're trying to get through a certain location.
Success token.
Success token just looks like that. They're the same on both sides. That they help you keep. We'll get into that more later, but they will help you keep track of how many successes you're getting when you're rolling the dice, because you can actually go over the 3, or there's cases where you can actually store them and use them as automatic successes in the future. And then the peril token is basically just to map along on this card here. It fits nicely on there, and this is going to start sliding up as you quest along the game, etc., etc. And the farther it goes up on the track, the badder the things that happen to you, which is always fun.
And that's everything for the components of the game. So we will go into a quick setup, or how to set up for the game.
Yeah, and we'll go over the cards in a little more detail as we do that, because there's a lot.
Okay, so before we get into actual how to play the game, we'll go through the setup, which is actually in the rules. There's a tutorial version that you can do, but you can also do the actual way, and we're going to go with the non-tutorial version. So the first thing you do for setup is choose a campaign or delve quest.
We are going to choose a campaign, and since there's only one in the box,
I think we're picking that one, right?
All right. So what you do is you find a campaign, and you place it in front of everybody, and this is called a foul stench, and it says Quest 1 over here, and the name of Quest 1 is an Uneasy Alliance. Real quick, I'll spin that around. So on a quest card, you have the peril tracker. You have these three different colors. You have the victory condition and the defeat condition, which are all right on the front of the card, and a little flavor text here, which is pretty cool. There's a story that goes along, which makes it pretty awesome. And as I said before, here's exactly how you set this up. I'll go over it in just a minute. Here's what you get to read to the party, and reward and penalty there. So flipping back to the front side real quick, I'm going to go over the peril track. So every round we're going to move this up. There's a peril stage. And what these colors mean is every time the peril tracker hits that color, there's the green, there's the blue, and there's the orange, this event happens. Or, I don't know if event's the right word, but that goes off. Then when you hit blue, that goes off. When you hit orange, that goes off. Once you get to orange, if you can't get it off of orange, every single time the round ends and you get to the peril stage, that thing happens again and again and again and again.
Yeah, so
very bad.
most games, if you get to the end of the track, that usually means the end of the game. But for this one, it's different because once you hit the orange one, like Mickey said, on the next turn, it's just that effect goes off again.
Oh, it'll be the end of the game. or not far away.
Right.
So, anyways, it's set up very nice. I'm gonna pick this card up for a second, and I'll be reading to you a little bit to describe the setup, or Jeb will, or somebody will. But anyways, so that's what the card looks like. That's how it functions. Most of the thing on the quest is on that card somewhere.
Okay.
So anyways, next step.
The next step is choose your heroes. Mickey chooses who he always is.
I love archers, so I'm going to be the Way Watcher. Notice it's just Jeb and I, so I pick the one with 2. This is my hit points, so I take her, I place her in front of me, I take my 4 basic action cards, I place those like this in front of me as such. And that is what I will be able to use. Notice I don't get any of these special gear cards. I have to find those as I quest.
And I am choosing the Warrior Priest for this game. I'm not a huge fan of dwarves, so that's why I didn't choose him. And I feel like in a 2-player game, being a volatile wizard might not help us out. So I'll go with the priest guy. So,
Alright.
So that's who we're going to be. After you choose the heroes, you'll gather the components, which we already did. It's the icon count card and your 4 actions. So after that, you want to place all your hero components, which we already did. Man, we're ahead of the game.
Well, yeah, if it's further along in the campaign, you'll have set aside some of the things that you own or have found or whatever. You're allowed to carry a set number of items based on your level in the game. The game comes with little tracker sheets you can make a copy of in the back of one of the books. I forget which one it is, but anyways, that's how you keep track of everything. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, they can. Alright, so after you do that, you will create the supply, which I guess
There's
isn't
supply.
We'll probably make it easier, or we'll...
Yeah, and the peril marker would go on there, Jim. Just on the starting marker. Notice that the starting place for the peril marker, this is important, has no skull in the middle of it. That has a skull, that has a skull, that has a skull. Why do I say that? Because later on in the game, that blank marker actually starts in a different spot. So there you go.
The next thing is to create the decks. So I guess this is where the back of this card comes in handy.
Yep.
The first thing is the enemies.
Okay, so the enemies. This is one of the parts of this game that I found pretty neat. So how the setup works is it'll give you a list of enemies. So how I find the enemies is, first of all, it's going to list enemies. It's just going to tell you which ones. So, for instance, it says enemies. Shuffle the giant bats, the gigantic spiders, the goblin warriors, the orc boys, 4 open standard enemies, and 2 open elite enemies together. And that's going to be our enemy deck. So, how that works is I'm going to go through, and I've already have some of these separated, just so for time purposes. I will go through the enemy deck, right? There's the enemies. And I'm going to pull out everything that has that name. So giant bats, I said the giant bat, and the elite giant bat. Same with the spider, gigantic spider, elite gigantic spider. Okay? So I take all of those down the list and I put those together. Now it says 4 open standard enemies and 2 open elite. What that means is here comes some random enemies. So what I do is I look at what level quest I'm on. Up here in the corner, it's got a level 1. So I go through the enemy deck and I take out all the rest of the level 1s that remain in the deck. There they are. And I shuffle them up. And so I don't know what they are. 1, 2, 3, 4. I take the rest of the elite level 1s in the same process.
If you haven't seen by now, the elite ones are the red backed, or their background's red.
And I put 2 of those in. Then I take everything and I will shuffle that to make the enemy deck, and those are the enemies for this quest. So as you can see, with the exception of the ones that it automatically lists, the game will change every time for enemies.
And after you do the enemies, you'll do the location deck, which once again is written on the quest card.
And this one says, shuffle 3 open locations together, then place Grump's Sump location card on the bottom of the deck. So I go through, I find all the 1s, take those aside. I find Grumps. Oh, look at that, was automatically on the bottom. Did you see that, guys? That wasn't set up. So there's Grumps. He goes on the bottom. Shuffle my level 1s. Draw 3. There, I got open locations. So again, another thing that randomizes the whole game. You never know what locations you're going to be going through, except for perhaps the first, the last, or whatever the scenario tells you.
Alright, and then finally it's the gear and the dungeon decks, which, hey, guess what? There's a thing on the card that tells you what to do.
Yes. So for gear and dungeons, shuffle 12 open gear cards together and 12 open dungeon cards together. Okay, so the gear cards, again, the back with the skull and the gun and the sword. The only cards in the gear deck that come out are your legendary fortune ones. Those are the only unique ones that come out. You can tell by these little symbols in the upper left-hand corner. Those come out. You toss them aside. They don't go in until the game tells you to. I shuffle the deck, and I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there, I have a gear deck.
And it sounded like it's kind of similar for the that other deck.
And it is the
dungeon.
And in this box there are 2 special symbol ones that won't go in right now. Those get set aside. Shuffle. Look. And do 12 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So again, awesome way to randomize the game so that it'll be different each time you play, because what's in the dungeon will be different.
After you get all the decks together, you put the peril, or you set the peril on the peril.
See, Jeb had that, and I will jump the gun.
Yeah, but I was being nice.
Yeah, sometimes he's nice to me.
After that, you will choose the party leader, which we all know who's going to be the party leader. And then after that, Yeah, the last thing you do is reveal a starting location. That's the top card of the deck, of the location deck, and then you'll spawn accordingly, which we should probably mention how to spawn, right?
Okay, we will right now. Alright, so here's a location. So a good time to explain the card. You know what that is from when we went over it. That's the level 1. Now, how the spawning works. This is what spawns in the game based on what's down in the bottom left-hand corner. You notice there's 2 numbers. One has a red background. One has a black background. So what's going to happen is you're going to, starting with the leader, always starting with the leader when stuff spawns, no matter what. When stuff spawns, start with the leader. And that's a big deal because your weak person could get hammered when something spawns. Anyways, so this has a 2. So what would happen is I would flip one enemy face up to me, because I'm the leader, and I would deal one face-up enemy to Jeb. He's the second player. Okay, and notice that only 2 came out. So if we were in a 4-player game, right now there'd be 2 people that are not engaged with an enemy. They are engaged is the word for being in front of you. And then the last black background enemy comes out face down in what's called the shadows. We'll reset this up when we get ready to play, but the shadows would be like up in this area, face down. Alright, so that's how that would be your initial enemies.
And that's everything for setup. Alright, so for gameplay, we'll go over how the mechanics of the game work. A quick overview is it's played over a series of rounds, and it goes until you either meet the victory or defeat condition.
In our case, since Jeb just mentioned that, let's talk about the victory condition. During the location phase, and we'll get into the phases in a little bit, if Grump's sump is fully explored, resolve the award section on the back of this sheet. And the defeat condition, if all heroes are defeated, resolve the penalty on the back of this sheet. And then if you flip it over, you have your reward and you have your penalty. I'll read that real quick. So if we win, get some flavor text, and we get to add Odius Grump. Yes, we get to add the bad guy and 1 legendary fortune gear card to the campaign pool. So what that means, since it's campaign, is those cards are going to carry over to the next campaign. So yes, you're going to have Gump in the bad guy deck again, and which is bad, which you'll see in a moment. And but you're going to get to put one of those cards, the legendary fortune cards, into the gear deck. And what that means is if somebody is questing or searching and finds this, they get to select one of their legendary weapons and put it into their gear, which is awesome. And if the penalty for losing is Odious Grump gets added to the campaign pool. So basically you get nothing good.
Alright, so I guess at the beginning of a round, each hero is going to activate starting with the leader. So since Mickey's the leader, he will be activating first. The first thing you do is perform an action. Every hero has 4 available actions that they can do. They're the 4 cards in front of Mickey and me. To perform an action, you exhaust one of the readied actions. Resolve the effect on the action card from top to bottom. One of them has a prepare icon, which readies all action cards of that hero. Game effects cannot force it to exhaust, and the main effect is in bold. So I guess we should go over that. Okay,
so everybody in the game has the exact same actions, but their cards are different. Chris, and what I mean by that is I have an attack card, I have a rest card, I have an explore card, and I have an aid card. Jeb has the exact same cards. They just do different things. To elaborate on what Jeb said, my deadly shot has my refresh action, which is the recycle symbol down in the bottom right-hand corner. And these are the steps that I perform when I exhaust this card. Exhausting the card means turning it 90 degrees, like exhaust means in every other game that you've probably played. So when I take an action, I would exhaust the card, and in order, I would go down and do this line, and then this line, and then this line. And what Jeff meant by the main action in bold, if you notice, this is a good example. The main action is actually the last thing on the card. Why does it matter? Because some of the things that you can do first actually might benefit you if you do them first. And of course you can skip if you want, but you have to do the main action. Anything to add to that, Jeb?
Nope. I guess just choose one of your actions for our example that you want to do.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and choose, why not choose the Explore action. So my Explore action is Orion's Hunt, and I would exhaust the card, and I would go down and I go, oh, look, there's this card, the main action is actually the first one. So it's an Explore action, it has 2 pictures of dice.
Alright, and this is where the next thing is. After you choose your card and exhaust it, you're going to gather the dice. So you gather white dice listed next to the action, and then you gather a black die for each readied enemy engaged with you. Engaged is in the player area, not in the middle.
Engaged and readied.
Yes.
It's important because if it's exhausted, it doesn't swing back.
So right now, Mickey is doing his Explore, which had how many on there?
It has 2 white dice.
So he gets 2 white.
And if you know, at the beginning of the game, I was dealt a bad guy, so I get 1 black dice.
Alright, so he has gathered everything. So what do you do after you gather your dice?
Finish doing the rest of my card.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I thought
Jeb will cut me out. I won't even hear what I'm talking about right now. So I do Explore, because that's the one to gather dice. And I roll the dice. Now's a good time to explain the dice.
Alright, rolling dice. A success will add to your total. Or there's multiple things. There's success, critical success, defense, attack, and nemesis.
Alright.
So I guess the first one is success, or we'll do what you have.
Alright. So, the double axes are successes. Okay? The shields are defense. And the those slash marks are attacked by the enemy.
Yeah.
Alright? And those are critical successes. Like
a little sun.
The little sunburst thing. Alright? So, in this particular roll, I triggered the nemesis, and I got 3 successes and 1 defense. So, how does that work? Well, I have 3, so that means I have 3 successes to the Explore. The Explore goes back to this card. This is a 6. We have to have 6 progress tokens, or whatever they call it on this game, to complete it. And I got 3, so I will put a 3 on there. So we're halfway done with that location. None of the slash marks went off, so the clan rat did not attack me. However, if this had been that, I have a shield, and it would have blocked that attack. If I had not gotten a shield, and this came up with another success or whatever, just say I didn't get the shield, what would happen is the monster would attack me for that amount of damage. It just does the damage. If you didn't get a shield, it's going to do that damage to you. That's its attack value. Over here is its health. So I would take a damage counter and put it on my card. Okay, that's how attacking works. Oh, but, Mickey, what happens if you have multiple creatures in front of you? And one of them attacks. Well, I look at the creature and I say, which creature has the highest level? They get priority. Yes, the game is difficult. So, the biggest, baddest guy is always going to attack you first when these go off. Okay, so now that I explained all that, I'll touch on the Nemesis card. As you know, we put Gump into what they call the lair at the beginning of the game. I don't know where Jeb put him. Where is...
Right there's Gump.
Alright. Or I didn't put him over, or whatever. Jeb can blame it on me. Alright, this is Gump. Right now he's in the Nemesis lair. We'll say Nemesis lair is up there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
But he's not... He's hiding right now. That does not negate that. That happens every time you roll it. So we look at his card down in the corner. We see what that says. In this particular case, it says, distribute 2 wounds among the party. Yes, so that's going to happen every single time that thing gets rolled.
So, right now, Mickey just rolled it, so here's 2 wounds, right?
We can distribute them any way we want. And I'm weaker than Jeb, so I'm going to make him take both.
I was going to say, you didn't extend your hand out when I offered one.
I know! Maybe I'll be nicer during the real game, Jeb. So that's how all the parts of the dice work. Let me real quick explain what would have happened if I roll a critical success. If I roll a critical success, I don't recommend this unless like the immediately after you don't get another one. But what happens is you get to re-roll the dice. So in order to keep track, if you feel unlucky, put that in front of you so you know you got that. Re-roll the dice. And look, got 2 more. So that critical turned into 1, turned it into 2 more, so I got 3. That's how that works. And if you keep rolling that,
just keep
on piling them. So if I rolled 2 more in a row and still rolling, whatever. You get the point. You keep going until it lands on something that's not a critical. And each one counts as a success. Then I would continue down the card, and I would draw and resolve a dungeon card. So the dungeon pile, again, is the lanterns. I would just draw one off the top and then do what it says. Oh, look, a bad thing happened to us, Jeb. Ill fortune. Either discard 2 successes or suffer 2 wounds. And that does not say may, does not say anybody else gets to help. So I would have to do this right away. I have no stored up successes, which would be placed on my card somewhere. So I have to suffer the 2 wounds. I would take the 2 wounds. I would put them on my card as such. And then just discard this. If you ever run out of the dungeon cards, you reshuffle and continue. Just as a side note, because I'm sure that somebody will ask.
Alright, and then a couple things just to round out the whole thing. When you roll successes, depending on your action that you chose, different things happen. So as Mickey did the Explore, so when he rolled his successes, it puts progress tokens on the location. If he had taken the rest action, when he got successes, they would be used to recover wounds, so a wound per success. If he used aid, put a success token on other players' actions per success, and that's a maximum of 2 on an action. So Mickey, if you had gotten 3 success tokens,
when I was doing aid,
yeah,
and I gave them to Jeb. Jeb could put 1 on each of those if he wanted, or he can put 2 on one and 1 on the other. But you can only have a max of 2 stored up. Also, real quick, I didn't finish out my card on the Explore action, and the last thing on my Explore action says I can exhaust 1 non-nemesis enemy in the shadows. This card is in the shadows, so I could exhaust it. And you'll see why that's important when we get to the monster phase, but basically he can't attack now.
Alright, and the last thing was a success for attack. If you get successes on attacks, it's the target takes a wound per success.
Minus any shields it has.
Right.
Which, on the cards, if it's got a little number by its health, that's a shield for it, or a defense, whatever you want to call it. But it blocks 1.
Alright, and then for face-down enemies, they're treated like face-up enemies. They're flipped when they suffer a wound, become engaged, or are activated. And face-up cards can never go face-down. Unless
in a game.
Yeah.
situation lets you do it.
Yep.
So
where we're at right now, Mickey did his action. So next it would be me. I would do my action. And one thing we didn't mention was, since it's a 2-player game, on our hero cards, it says this hero activates twice during each hero phase.
it's just a reminder of how. So the way they scale this game is the heroes always get 4 turns.
Yeah.
So in a 2-player game, both Jeb and I are going to go back and forth until we've both had two turns. 3-player game, the leader is going to get 2 turns. In a 4-player game, everybody's going to get a turn. If you play solo, you play with 2 characters. Well, I guess you could play with them all, too, if you wanted to go around the table.
Yeah.
But the point is, you always take 4 turns.
So in this case, Mickey would go, I would go, Mickey would go, I would go, and that's the end of the hero activation. So then we would do the enemy activation. And this takes place after the heroes activate. Enemies activate starting with the leader. So since Mickey's the leader, his enemy's going to activate. Each hero activates 1 readied enemy, taking turns until all enemies are exhausted. Alright.
Okay. Just real quick before we get into the whole monster attack phase, when you draw from the dungeon deck, some of the cards in the bottom left have a coin. Okay? So when you do your explore action, everybody gets to draw a dungeon card when they do it. If you get a coin, though, that enables you to automatically draw a card from the loot deck and keep it. Do whatever it says or whatever. You can carry it around. And you still get the effect of that card too. So just so you know, if you see the coin when you get the card, you get a gear deck card also. So now into the monster phase. Alright, so here's how the monsters work. On the monster cards, you have its level, as we went over, some flavor text down here. There could be other things that it does, but this one's just flavor. And then you have how much it attacks for here, and how much health it has. So, like any other game, if it gets a number of wounds that meet or exceed its health, it dies. Now, this is another cool thing I like in this game on how the monsters work. So they have words right here on all the cards. And they could be
effect bar.
Effect bar. Thank you, Jeff. Because they're not just words, they are effects. Anyhow, so what you do is from left to right, you do what they say. This rat has advance and inflict. Alright, so advance. That means whoever activated the card, it comes to. So, in other words, if this was in the shadows and I activated this, we'll get to this in a little bit, it would advance to me. Now it's engaged with me. So, I look at it, see the advance, he's already engaged, he stays where he is, I move to the next effect, and it's inflict. Inflict just means it deals the damage. There's no rolling of dice at this point in time. If he gets to attack and he has inflict, guess what? You're getting whacked. So I will take those off and put a 3. Now I have 3 damage on me. And I haven't even killed anything. And then it moves to the next player.
Oh, he gets exhausted, right?
He does get exhausted, which is important because exhausted monsters are done. Okay.
All right.
So then we move to Jeff.
Me.
Yep.
On his bar, it says retreat and then inflict. So I assume retreat, since he's engaged with me, retreating means he goes into the shadows while still face up.
Yep.
And then inflict is he does damage, and I believe it's to the person who's activating him.
That's correct.
So he's 1 damage, so I take a damage.
So
and then he exhausts.
So notice that the bat actually moves out of the way and still hits you. So unless you have a way to shoot distance, i.e. a ranged person, or you can engage it yourself, he's going to stay up there and just whoever activates it is going to get slapped with a point of damage, because let's say that nobody engages it next time and it's active. Eventually somebody's going to have to activate that card. They're going to read it. He's in the shadows, so he can't retreat because he's already in the shadows, and then he will inflict on whoever activates him, and then again we'll get exhausted. That goes back to me. And here's what I was telling you that was kind of nice about Orion's Hunt that let me exhaust a non-nemesis character in the shadows. Even though he is not face up, doesn't matter. I got to exhaust him, so nothing happens. Now, if I had not been able to do that and this card was still face up, it would be my turn again. I would have to activate that card. The second that it gets activated, it flips over and it does its effects. Now this one, if you'll notice, the effect bar has 3, which is pretty neat. So the Night Goblin does the same thing. It retreats first. He's already there, so I don't have to do anything. He inflicts. Here's the damage, so I would take a damage. And then he inflicts again. Yay, I get pegged twice. So he sits up there and plucks away at people too. And then he would exhaust. But again, and that way it wouldn't have done anything. This way I have to activate it. You continue activating monsters until they're all exhausted.
And I wanted to point this out. It's something to remember, is the way that you choose your enemy to activate. So you have to... There's an order to it. You must first choose an enemy engaged with you. If there are none that are engaged with you, then you choose one that's readied in the shadows. And if there's none that are readied in the shadows, then you pass.
So basically, it's in front of you first, shadows second. When everything's exhausted, or if you can't do anything, you pass because your teammates might still have ready things. And then once everything is exhausted, that's the end of the attack phase.
Alright, so this is, since all the enemies are exhausted, that's the end of the enemy activation. So the next thing we do is location effects. And what this is you resolve the effect on the current location. When the exploration value is met, you may explore a new location. And if you do choose to do that, previous and all non-nemesis in the shadows are discarded, and then the leader draws a new card and spawns the way we talked about earlier. For example, the Winding Tunnels, its effect is...
One more thing before Jeb moves on to the location thing is, after everything is exhausted, everything re-readies.
Oh, yep, that's...
Wherever it is.
That is something I forgot to say, but I'll cut that out.
But that's where it actually happens. It actually happens like right at the end of that phase. You reset everything. I think they do that just so you don't forget. You could actually do it at the end of the round, I think. I don't think it would matter.
Doesn't hurt to do it.
Yeah, but that's when you're supposed to do it, is right there. Then I'm sorry, Jeb, go ahead.
So for example, the Winding Tunnels has an effect that says, at the end of the location phase, the party leader may discard 2 progress tokens from this location. If he does not, spawn 1 enemy face down in the shadows. So that's what a location effect may look like, and that's the one that we're at right now. So I guess Mickey would have to choose to either discard 2 of the 3 that he had placed, or he would have to he'd have to spawn an enemy in the shadows.
Most likely as the leader, unless we were being hammered unbelievably hard, or unless I had overage on there that it didn't make a difference, I'm probably going to let something spawn.
Yeah.
And what did it say? Face down to the shadows. So what would happen is that card would go up and sit there like that until he was, one of the 3 conditions was met. Alternatively, what happens if there were 6 on there, Jeb?
You may explore a new location.
Notice the word may. You don't have to. It's kind of that can be important too, because there are situations where you're trying to accomplish different things. So most of the time, you're gonna get the heck out of Dodge and move on to the next one. So at this point, right now, I could explore the new location. So notice that the end effect does not happen. Some of these cards say at the beginning. So if they say at the beginning, before you actually get to go to the next one, you're going to have to do whatever the card said. So that would get discarded. This would flip over. And then you would read its effect, because the new card might have, at the end of the phase, something happens. And you are technically now at that location. Of course, the progress tokens go off. So what happens when that flips over, Jeb?
It says, if it's a new location, previous and all non-nemesis in the shadows are discarded.
So this goes away, and this goes away. The only question that could arise from this, and I'd have to look up the answer. I think you look at it, but if you're further along in the game and Gump could actually be in this pile instead of already in the game, this upside down one could have potentially been him. I can't remember the ruling on that, but if he was already turned up, he would stay because he's a Nemesis character. Or if he had moved down, Nemesis characters don't go away, but otherwise these get discarded.
So does that giant bat, right?
Oh, he's in there too, the shadows. Yeah, anything in the shadows. Everything in front of you is engaged, so it's still there.
Alright. And then Mickey drew the new one, and then he'd do the spawning, which is a red 1.
Yep, notice I'm still leader. Remember the leader first. I flip it face up. And now I have another enemy in front of me.
And then there's 3 for the shadows that spawn.
So now we have no idea what's there.
Yep. Alright, so that would be the, well, I guess you would check the card to see at the end of the location phase, the party leader exhausts 1 action.
Yeah. We'll try to look up that rule about if one of the face down is a Nemesis. Jeff can put it in the notes if we remember. Sorry about that, guys. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Alright, so after the location phase is the peril phase, which is increasing the peril and applying any peril effects of that color. And then, as we mentioned before, if you're at the end of the peril track, it stays on the end or the last space and activates that peril effect.
Right. So as I explained earlier, this keeps moving along. So at the end of the first round, no big deal. But when it gets here, the green one's going to go off. If you want to know what those say real quick. The green space says spawn Odius Grump. So Grump would come in. So basically he just comes right in to the, it says spawn. He's going to go to the leader.
Yeah.
Doesn't come into the shadows. And then once he hits blue, it says spawn Odius Grump. You say, oh, he's already been spawned. Yeah, but what if we killed him? Guess what? He's coming in. If he is already in play, he regains all his health.
1.
Regardless, he activates and readies. So basically, if you get to the blue one, he gets a free shot, and then he's going to attack again.
Fun. Alright, so after the peril phase is over, it's actually the end of the round, and the only thing that happens there is the leader token is passed to the left.
And I hope that you caught from the little things that I was saying how important the leader token is. If you noticed, when I read the green one to you, it goes to the leader. When we were dealing new cards, it goes to the leader. So you almost kind of need to pay attention a little bit, or have a plan. If, say, you're a wizard, if it's his turn to be leader, you better have the tank have his cards ready to be able to pull stuff away from him, or you're going to get hammered hard. Anyways, did we cover everything, Joe?
I've got a list of miscellaneous things that I will just shoot off pretty quick, and you can let me know if you have anything. Dungeon cards consist of items or events, so either you equip the item or the event goes off. Condition cards are ongoing effects. So
nothing had the conditions. There's only 3, like I had mentioned before. We have bleeding. Bleeding says after your activation, suffer 1 damage, and after another hero aids you, you discard this card. So you're going to take a wound every single time that somebody doesn't aid you, which isn't too bad until stuff starts really piling up. Sickened, during your action, you apply -1 success. So you're not feeling too well. So yeah, you get rid of that one when you rest, and you actually get rid of it before you rest, so you're not going to get hammered with the -1 while you rest. And then empowered, the good one in it, you do not exhaust the next action card you use. And during that action, apply a +1 success and a +1 shield. So you're feeling pretty,
nice.
You had a good night's sleep. And then as soon as you decide to use this, you discard it. So you're going to get a nice, whatever action you take, you're going to get a bonus.
Alright, the next thing is, before rolling dice, a hero must choose to use success tokens that are available. So, for instance, if Mickey had 1 success token on his attack action, and he declared the attack action, he would have to say if he's using the success token in addition. And what does that mean, Mickey, if you're using the success token?
Basically, that means, well, the first thing it means is that you know you're going to get a success, okay? The bad part of it is, in theory, you could almost be wasting it because you don't get to see your dice roll first, people. Right. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. You get the guarantee, but, you know, if you ended up getting a roll like that, you probably didn't need to do it. But I'll tell you one thing, in this game, better safe than sorry.
Yep. The next thing, you cannot be engaged with more than 3 enemies. If that is surpassed, the hero suffers wounds equal to the attack value, and the enemy goes into the shadows. So if Mickey had 3 enemies in front of him, and something said spawn an enemy, and he was the leader, it would go to him, but since it exceeds him...
Slaps me in the face and then leaves.
Yep. Another thing, resilience reduces attack value. I think Mickey mentioned that. That's the shield that's on the card.
And the enemies.
Yeah. The tier numbers in the top left of the enemy cards are used for setup, like you said. The Nemesis is the powerful enemy in the quest. And what's his name? Grump?
Yep. Odius Grump is your first Nemesis in this game.
Another thing for setup, cards with the quest icon are not shuffled in unless otherwise noted.
That was the special symbol I was showing you guys. Sorry, I didn't know what the name of the special symbol was.
And then for gear, there's a restriction. You get one. You can only equip 1 on the first quest of the campaign. You have to increase your capacity between quests.
Right.
So that's something when you do like the back-to-back quest stuff. There's a point in the middle, I think, is where you can increase your capacity.
You can train, but let me show you what Jeb's talking about here. So you have on this little sheet that lets you keep track of the log. Here's what quest you're doing, but down here is where it has a capacity box. The first one is already checked, so you know you're at 1 capacity. But what you do have to pay attention to is how much you're holding. As you can see, this was a previous quest I had started, and I had actually added to my capacity.
Right. And we talked about it before. If you have a smaller party, which is not 4 people, either the leader is going to attack twice, or everybody's going to attack twice, depending on how many players or how many heroes there are. And then finally, there is campaign play and delve quests, which are explained in the rulebook. We're not going to go.
We already touched on that. The delve quest is just a single one. The campaign is go through the whole thing. Yeah. Of course, you could grab anything you wanted and tried it, but I it would be pretty tough unless you came up with some house rules and said, well, I'll get a random of this and a random of that, because you are supposed to be beginning adventurers to start the game. One other miscellaneous thing that just crossed my mind. When I told you about the dungeon cards that have the coin, when you get the loot, of course, this goes with the capacity thing. Say you get something that's not that good, or you get something that you know would be way better on somebody else. You do not have to take that. It can go straight into the discard pile. The next person that draws a coin can draw off of the top, or they can go through the discard pile and take whatever they want. That's pretty important too, so I thought I'd toss that out there.
That is important. And then I guess the final thing, which I think was pretty cool when Mickey told me about it, is that if you're doing a campaign, you don't have to beat this quest, you don't have to beat Quest 1 in order to go to Quest 2. Whatever happens in Quest 1, it happens, and you just move right on.
Yep.
And so you just keep moving. I know, Descent? Well, no, that's not a good example.
I think that, we usually play Lord of the Rings, the card game. We usually don't move on until we've beat something. I don't think we have to do that, but what's the fun if you don't?
Right.
I mean, that game plays like you feel like you need to accomplish something. So, we don't move on until we actually beat it. This game is actually not set up to do that. I guess you could keep doing it over and over again until you beat it, but it's tough. So, anyways, unless Jeb has anything else,
nope.
We're going to adjust this a little bit so that it flows a little bit better, and then we are going to play and you can watch us die.
Yep.